Kris Bryant is making national news lately, and it's not exactly in the best of light. He keeps going back and forth on basically what he said and what he meant, but we're going to look into it a little bit. He says they're out of context. I don't know. You be the judge. Let's get into it. Welcome everybody back to the Touching Bases podcast. It's good to see your smiling faces. Do you guys like the Mariner spring training hat? It finally came in the mail. Decided to rock it for you guys, and I'm still waiting on my Orioles hat, so stay tuned. If you guys haven't already, please hit subscribe. It takes a couple seconds, that's all. It helps me out. It makes me feel wanted and needed, and I need that in my life right now because we're talking about some drama on a team that nobody talks about, but they're talking about it now because Kris Bryant decided to say something to The Athletic that apparently is out of context, but let's go a little bit of backstory before I get into what he said specifically. Kris Bryant decided to sign with the Colorado Rockies in 2022. Now, if you recall, 2022 was the MLB lockout, so there was a lot of people that were there was no talking with agents or players discussing them during that offseason, and nobody knew where they were going to go. And Kris Bryant was up for his contract, and he was looking for a new home to go to. And now he was very famous for his very stellar prospect driven, like gonna be the face of the Chicago Cubs. 2022 comes around, and he's looking for a major contract. He's looking for basically what everybody was expecting Bellinger to get during this offseason with Boris and the whole restraining thing, and it was working back then, let's put it that way. But in 2022 was a lockout, and spring training was coming around the corner, and he kind of said to The Athletic, and I guess I could quote, he says, "Oh shoot, I need to get in there." He means spring training. "There was another team interested, but I didn't want to wait around. There was a completely different situation for a lot of free agents at the time. I guess I didn't do much research into the prospects as I could." Ooh, it's the last sentence that's gotten him into a little bit of deep trouble. I said I was going to stop cussing on here, so I'm going to fix that. Sorry. YouTube, don't cut out my videos, please. If you guys missed it, that last sentence is, "I guess I didn't do as much research into prospects as I could," which sounds to the person, as if you're reading it, and probably to you, even if you're a Colorado Rockies fan, is that he didn't expect to be playing for a team that's this bad. That is the negative context that we probably all think and take into consideration. When you're watching a team that is struggling, that's basically in last place almost every single year, and coming from a player who's not doing well in the 2 years that he has been with the Colorado Rockies. Now, let's keep in mind, back in 2022, when he accepted that contract, it was a 7-year, $182 million contract, which was one of the higher end ones. He was definitely a big face. He was going to be a franchise name for the Rockies. Now, looking at it, 2 years into his contract, he's been plagued by insane injuries. I think he played 102 games recently, or somewhere around there. I probably should look up the exact number, but he did not play a full season the last couple of years, and he hasn't been performing as well as he should have. He was addressed by his team. He was addressed by the ownership and his manager, and I'm pretty sure he's trying to get ahead of it so that he can hopefully mitigate any damage that's already done. He says it's out of context. It's very hard to see what the context of that really meant because he didn't really clarify, but instead said, no, that's not the case because I didn't know about Tovar. I didn't know about Doyle, Amador, and I'm always mess up his name, Amador. Anyways, he's one of the prospects that are in here, and he didn't know about Beck or Hill. So he claimed all these things about, like, he didn't know about these guys and he should have done more research, but I don't know why you need to do more research when his response was saying that these guys are really good. Like, why do you need to do more research as if you could have avoided the situation you're currently in? I have trouble taking his side on this. At the same time, if he were to double down and say that he was, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. I thought I was going to be playing for a better team, and I thought that I wouldn't have to be picking up the pieces and having the stress of carrying my entire team to try to get us out of last place, which I think a lot of YouTube channels are backing him up, and they completely understand why he's saying these things, because I don't want to say the Rockies are irrelevant. I honestly think that they have one of the coolest City Connect jerseys in baseball, and I also have been to Coors Field, and it's a beautiful stadium. Now, infrastructure and aesthetics aside, the team does struggle a lot, and it's mainly from a cheap ownership. That doesn't mean that the ownership is bad in this case, in which Kris Bryant mentioned to an interview that happened today before the game against the Mariners, is he touches on how he loves the organization. Everybody's respectful. Everybody treats each other proper, and he gets a very home and welcoming vibe when it comes to the management there. That is a very different thing to keep in mind as far as the personal relationship and business relationship that you have with the team you play for versus what strategies that the organization is implementing in order to make a team. There is typically a balance. If you can find a team, I would probably say like the Dodgers, where they're like, we're strategically buying every best player we possibly can and giving the best vibe and most welcoming entry for any player to come play for us, saying we're going to be a championship team, we're going to be a family. I think that's something that the Dodgers have achieved. Just seeing Ohtani and seeing Yamamoto and seeing Teoscar Hernandez and all in one video and just having fun and talking and sharing, and Mookie Betts and all these guys coming together to be there to introduce players onto their team. It builds that family vibe, and there's a good balance because you have really good talent and you also have good camaraderie that's going along with it. Whether it's on face value or not, it looks good and it seems appealing, and it gives fans a really optimistic view of the next season. The Rockies are putting together a team that gets along, and they're achieving that, and I think that's great, but at the same time, they're putting together a team that can't really put together enough wins. That really causes a lot of issues where you take small comments like, I wish I knew what I was getting into, and I shouldn't have rushed my decision. You'll take someone's context and say, wow, it's like, yeah, I understand your team can't win. You're the only one that's really getting any notice while being on this team. And when you do, it's very minimal because nobody's paying attention to the Rockies. I don't mean this as disrespect to Rocky fans. I think you guys should really love your team and you should support them. And there is going to be a time where they come back around. And it's not that you guys have bad players on your team. It's just they need to come together and play well at the same time at the game, every game, where as far as I can tell, it's only one or two players that have a good game, and you can't carry a win with just one or two players. Maybe a couple games, but not all of them, and that can be super frustrating. So Brian did not say that he was misquoted during this whole thing. Now, he said, I probably said it, but context is everything. But insisted that the statement, he wasn't meant to be like, I was rushed into the camp and that I regret signing with the Rockies. That's what he's saying, that is absolutely not true. He says, I wanted it to be known that I wish it was normal so I knew who was here, the good players. I'm not saying that they're not good. It's the weirdest thing to me because they're really, really good. I think they need more credit. I think this is honest. I think this is genuine. I think he really does love his team and he has good morale and he thinks his team is really good. I'm trying to justify that last comment saying I wish I did more research before I came, because I think he meant it as in I rushed to everything, but I would have signed sooner if I knew the prospects that were going to be on this team. The players coming into the organization that he was going to play with, he would have jumped on it immediately. And this is probably the truth, but I think he said it very improper. He really messed up on that. He should have reworded it, because it did come off as much of a complaint. And really, given the last two seasons and given the team's state, as I said, it's very easy to take that into the context of which pretty much everybody else did, including those who support him in saying those negative things. Brenton Doyle earned a Golden Glove last year in center field for the Rockies last year in his rookie season. I mean, that just kind of adds on to the point that he thinks that his team is actually these players are really good, especially these prospects. Ezequiel Tovar was a Gold Glove finalist as a rookie, and Jones, who was attained after the 2022 season from the Guardians, had a monster year. So there is a lot of players that he's talking about that were either prospects or players that showed up after he signed that he didn't even know about was going to be on this team. And yeah, he probably was rushed to make a decision, and he was in talks with the Rockies before the lockout began in 2022, and it probably was really good to have that 7-year commitment along with the money that he was getting promised, and I think he won in the end because he hasn't been able to play full seasons and he has been plagued by injuries, and he's still getting paid. Now, I hope going into 2024 that the Rockies can actually make a name for themselves in the NL, just in general, and really get their names back. This might be negative press at this point, but I'm going to add on to it. I'm going to flip it and say this is positive press. I think that Kris Bryant had his heart in the right place and it was taken out of context. I think the fact that people were supporting him in his negative context version of what he said shows that people still believe in him, not the organization. But I don't think any organization's getting much love these days, whether they spend too much money or they don't spend any money at all. The A's, the Angels, the Mariners, the Orioles, the Dodgers, it's all convoluted with negativity, whether or not you're spending too much money in buying your team or you're not spending enough or not selling the team and moving them away from their home city since 1968. So what do you guys think? Leave a comment below. If you haven't already, subscribe, like the video, and just let's talk about it. What's your opinion on it? What's your stance? Are you a Rockies fan? Do you mad at what I had to say about your guys' team? I hope you guys understand I'm trying to be truthful and based on my perception. I think the rest of everybody else's perception, but I want you to know that I support you and I really do like your guys' stadium, I like your guys' team. I think you guys have a beautiful area and I think you guys have a really good team that just needs to pick a couple more pieces, and hopefully you can find that with the budget that you have. I'm gonna go find out where the hell my Orioles hat is, and we'll go from there. See ya.